My name's Yvonne Armenta. I double majored in media studies and Native American studies with an education minor. I found my passion in this, and a lot of times people ask me, well, what are you going to do with that? And honestly, it's a skill set. I don't know what I'm going to do with Native American studies. I don't know that it leads to an actual career, but it's given me a skill set that I just look at the world a little bit differently. Like Bob said, also, I am a first-generation college graduate, and that to me, I say that really proudly just because I know that that is not unique to me, that there are a lot of students, actually a lot of my friends that are also first-generation college students, but every day, I say it super proudly because every day we break one more barrier that is in front of us because our parents weren't able to guide us through this process, this crazy thing that we call college, right? And we can't do it all alone, like I said. I've had family, friends, mentors, teachers help me throughout this entire journey, and I would not be here if it weren't for them. I can tell you that in high school, for example, I remember sitting late at night on campus, writing my personal statement for college, with my teacher sitting right next to me as I'm writing my personal statement. And that, to me, is dedication, and that dedication is what got me through college and here today. So I do want to tell you a little bit about my high school journey. I titled this PBL, Creating Innovative, Passionate Barrier Breakers, and this is my life project, right? So we've been talking about projects in class and academics, and I'm titling this my life project. Like I said, this is a picture of me. I had a photographer take pictures of me around campus where I graduated. So I went to Metropolitan Arts and Tech High School, and like Bob said, it's now known as City Arts and Tech, part of Envision schools. My first year, the reason I have this up here, is that my first year, my campus was in the basement of Philip Burton, a public high school in San Francisco. My second year, my school was on campus with a middle school. We had a total of, I think, 2 hallways worth of campus. And then finally, my third and fourth year, we got our own campus. And this may not seem like a big deal, but to us, to the students that were able to push through and stick with the school, this was huge, right? And I do want to talk about all of us that stayed, right? We could have all transferred our first year when we were in the basement of Philip Burton, and people were saying, oh, you guys, this isn't your high school, you know. We could have all transferred, but we didn't. Second year, we could have also transferred, and a lot of people did. But I know from experience, personal experience, I wanted to stay just because I knew that it just seemed different. One, it was small. My graduating class was of like 20 plus students, 22 maybe. But also, our parents wanted us to stay there. They saw the difference in us, in our academics, in the ways that we talked about the things that we were learning. I remember one of my friends, she said, oh yeah, my mom doesn't want me to transfer, but I want to transfer really badly, right? Only because we didn't find stability in our campus, but we always found stability in our teachers and our mentors, and we saw the passion that they had for teaching us, and that's what kept us there. In this building is where I completed my college success portfolio defense. This is a screenshot of one of the videos. This is me when I passed my defense, and I was very happy. I can tell you that finals in college definitely didn't make me feel this empowered ever. So here, for those of you who are not familiar with it, so my entire 4 years at Metropolitan Arts and Tech, every year we had 2 exhibitions where it was kind of like one first semester, second semester kind of thing, where we presented just projects that we had been doing throughout the semester and presented it to our family and friends. So it had to be good, right? If I'm presenting in front of my mom, I have to make sure that it's good, otherwise she's gonna say, what are you doing? And every year we did this, and this was practice, and we did this all the time. And I can tell you that from my first year, I probably wouldn't even be able to do this right now. I am nervous, not gonna lie, but I probably wouldn't even know what to say. Through these, specifically at this presentation, I was there for an hour and a half, both presenting and getting asked questions that were not easy, by the way, and I had to think on my feet and I knew that I knew what I knew, right? But I had to prove that I knew it. And so this was monumental to me. And so I think that there's a problem, because why aren't more students doing this, right? The problem as I define it up here is that many students are not fully engaged with their education because they have no agency in what they learn or how they know or how they show that they have retained that knowledge, and they don't see themselves reflected in their education. So when I say they have no agency in what they learn, this means we all, like as educators, well, not a teacher yet, but as educators, you have these things that you have to teach your students, right? And that's fine because they need to know the knowledge. But then again, they don't have agency in how they choose to show that they've retained that knowledge. So we have these tests that we bubble things in, and we're like, okay, they got 100%. They know what they're talking about. Or they didn't do so well. They don't know what they're talking about. But I'm here to tell you that having these engaging projects and then having them be almost a little bit harder than the actual test because you actually have to talk to people. You know, there's this saying that you don't actually know things if you aren't able to fully articulate it to an audience, right? And I think that I believe that. And when I say they don't see themselves reflected in their education, I not only mean that as Mexican American, I know that my peoples are part of American history, but I don't see them in the textbooks, right? That's one thing. But I also am saying that as an individual student, as an individual person, I don't see the way that my education in a traditional setting is favoring me, is doing what it needs to be doing for me to be an active member of my community. And so I have a question. How can teachers, schools, systems engage these students in their education so that they may feel empowered not only in their academics, but as leaders of their lives and communities? And so my answer to that is that PBL engages students in meaningful projects that not only encourage them to seek answers to questions that they are passionate about, but later allow them to creatively prove that they have retained the necessary knowledge. And I am going to argue today that this creates self-confidence, agency, and a clear vision of who you are as a student. And I want to direct us to this essential project design element. I didn't just come up with a question and answer and a problem and I didn't come up with this, right? I knew unconsciously or consciously that this is what I was doing when I was in high school, and so I repeated it again just to prove to all of you that this actually works. So, my life artifacts. When I was in high school, I had to do this. I had 3 artifacts that I had to talk about and prove that I had mastered knowledge. And so this is what I'm going to do today. I'm going to let you know how project-based learning really not only helped me in college, because I know a lot of the times you're like, well, is this actually going to help students in college? But it's helping me in my life. So my first artifact is my Native American Studies class, 145, Images of Native Americans in American History. I took this class my second semester of freshman year, and this class made me want to be a Native American Studies major. In this class, we did this project, and now that I look back at it, at the time I didn't notice it, right? Because it's project-based learning is so programmed in me now that I just do it naturally. But here, we read novels, we looked at media, we did a whole bunch of things, and looked at the way that Native Americans were depicted in American history, but also contemporary and like modern art and media and novels. And I had to do what I did in high school all over again, right? I had to write a research paper at the end of the class on a topic of my choosing, of something that I was interested in, and I chose to do it on Native American comedy. So up here, I just have a little quote, which I think was kind of something, it was what I wrote up there. Probably not the best. It was, again, my second semester, freshman year. And I said, whereas non-natives use stand-up comedy and humor to further perpetuate the image that they, along with the most of the US, have of Native Americans, Native American comedians use these depictions as the basis for the comedy pieces to criticize and challenge ideas about an Indian who can only exist as an Indian from the past. And so I used this book up here as part of my evidence. Again, this paper was 10 pages long, and that to anyone can be really boring, and it is. But what I'm trying to say here is that it wasn't as boring because I was writing on something that I actually was interested in, right? This is a project that they gave me, and I had full agency to choose a topic. I was going to learn the history anyways. I was going to get the content down anyway, but I chose this. And at the end of it, we also had a presentation. I don't know if my professor, Enrique Lima, went through like project-based learning. I don't know if he came to one of these conferences, but he knew that I had to present. So I presented, and it was engaging, and it was fun, and I loved every second of it. And so this is the piece where I'm letting you know how this actually applies to my college career. A lot of my classes didn't have me necessarily present, but I had to go through all these steps of thinking critically and thinking about a problem. And to me, the fact that comedians use Native Americans to be funny when they're not Native Americans kills me, and it makes me angry, right? And so I also found that Native Americans find agency in performing about themselves and trying to change the narrative. And going back to my argument, I had to seek answers to questions that I was passionate about. I didn't know that I wanted to be a Native American Studies major, but because of this class, I learned that was exactly what I wanted, and then I was able to creatively prove this through my essay, through my presentation. And I was self-confident. I was like, yeah, I know what I'm doing because I've done this before in high school all the time for 4 years. I had agency because I got to choose the topic that I wanted to talk about, and I had a clear vision of who I was as a student because I knew from that day moving forward that I wanted to major in Native American Studies. My second artifact is this past summer, I went to Nice, France. I studied abroad, and I participated in the program called the European Innovation Academy, where basically you got people from all over the world that came together, and you thought, we had this board where you wrote problems that you see in the world, right? And then we had this mixer where we all came together, and you talked about all the problems that you saw in the world, and the point was that you would come up with a startup. It was essentially a startup accelerator program that would fix that problem. This is a crazy project to have, right? You're literally fixing a problem in the world. Our problem was that there's a lack of cultural and sensitivity in the workplace, and we wanted to figure out a way that we could get the workplace to be, one, a little more diverse, and two, once those people are in through the door, that they can feel welcome and included. And so my group did this, and I was the marketing head at the time, so I did a lot of research on who would even buy this product that we're producing, would they even actually want it. A lot of the time, by the way, we had counselors and people guiding us through the process. We had like lectures from like 9 to 3, and then 3 to 5 was like work time where you got to be with your group. And a lot of the times they'd be like, well, do you think you'll actually have someone that will buy this product? And the product, by the way, was this, we wanted to make cultural inclusivity fun. We think that mandatory trainings are not, they don't work, because when you feel like you have to be somewhere, you don't retain that knowledge. And so we decided to create a gaming platform that was avatar-based. We had the engineer of our team, do that. I definitely had nothing to do with that because I didn't know how to even work that. But she made avatars for each one of us. We did research on cultures, on different cultures, and because our team was culturally diverse, we were able to produce something that was like actually really cool. My trip here was cut a little bit short, but the skills that I gained from this, I had a question, right? There was a problem that I had. Again, I'm going back to this slide. I knew that there was cultural insensitivity in the workplace. And at this time, I was a junior, actually senior summer, and I was like, well, I'm about to go into the workplace. I am not your traditional, person that works at a tech company, right? Like, what can I do to make sure that students that look like me and that come from the same backgrounds as me are also included in these conversations? And I was passionate about this, and so was my team. And I was lucky that I found people that were actually passionate about this, Like, I went in there as a humanities major. Everyone around me was an engineer, was a business major, was doing math, sciences, right? Not even gonna lie, I was a little bit intimidated, but I knew that I had something to offer that maybe they hadn't even thought about, right? And this was it. Who knew you could create actual platforms that would change lives, right? Again, I gained self-confidence through this. I have always thought like, wow, especially because I hear this from a lot of people, right? Wow, what am I gonna actually do with my humanities major? What am I gonna do with it? I can do whatever I want with it, right? I had agency in deciding what I wanted to work on during that specific project. And I had a clear vision of who I wanted to be, not only as a student, and I say student because I'm always constantly learning, and I believe that we're all students, right? You don't stop learning at a certain age. I haven't stopped learning since I because I graduated college. Like, I'm still a student. I'm a student of the world now. And I had a clear vision of what I thought that the world needed. And this moves me to my current position at Uber, where I'm the Diversity and Inclusion Fellow for the summer. So I want to talk about how project-based learning, I hope that you've seen that, one, it helped me through my academics in college, and then two, still my academics, but a sort of extracurricular, and then three, now at an actual job where I'm actually like getting paid to do this, right? As you know, because of the media and everything that's going on, Uber has crazy problems going on right now. I've identified the problem, and I said this to Abby and to Nick, and I said, I knew this was a problem already. I knew you had a diversity and inclusion problem already. We've been trying to tell you for years, right? And finally, you've made a position, a team, that does just this, that looks at diversity and inclusion and says, hey, we actually need, and I don't just mean they need more Latinas or they need more Black people or more Native Americans. I do mean that. That is very, very important. But I also mean that these tech companies need diversity in thought, they need diversity in experience and background. And so what project-based learning is helping me do here is I constantly have to show people that my ideas, that what I'm saying is backed up by actual evidence. Like, I'm not saying that diversity and inclusion is important because I think it is. I'm saying that it's important because it actually is, right? And I do want to say, disclaimer, that Uber so far has been great. I know that the media, a lot of it is true, right? These systems of oppression that are very micro, can be very micro level, exist everywhere. They exist, diversity and inclusion is a problem everywhere. It has always been, right? But hopefully I get to kind of try to fix it. So I'm seeking answers to questions that I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about getting people through the door and making sure that they have the opportunity to be there and the opportunity to speak their minds, because it's just so important to get everyone there. Imagine half the problems that we have now probably wouldn't even exist if we had thought about diversity and inclusion in the first place. I'm actually creatively proving that this works, because it's a whole new team. It's a whole new, idea, something that people haven't necessarily invested money in. And by the way, it's very well funded, and they are actually putting a lot of thought and process into this, and I won't let them do anything less, right? I'm confident, I have agency, and I have a clear vision of who I want to be, even if I don't end up staying at Uber, even if I end up doing something else. I always know that I want to create this pipeline and that I want to do this. And this is my life project right now. So I may not have the conclusions to it yet, but I will get back to you. And so again, I want us to go back to this because this is where this all stems from, right? But I want us to also look at this and realize that this in itself is a system, right? And a system is made up of people, and we must always remember to humanize the process. Because this affects real life students that have problems at home, students where school isn't their thing. This is, follow this, please do, because it allowed me to create a space in my education where I feel confident, where I have agency, and where I have a clear vision of where I'm going, but always, always, always remember that the students are at the core of this, and that's the most important thing to me. If you forget everything else that I said today, just remember that students are at the core of this, and that the reason a lot of you that all of you are in education and want to learn about this is because you're passionate about your students and about the potential that they have. I want to share a story about my brother. So I've always been I've always loved school. I was at family parties all the time in the corner reading a book or knitting, because at the time I remember I was learning how to knit. And this has been my academic and life trajectory, right? Project-based learning worked for me because I loved school, because I was engaged in my learning from the beginning, and it helped me be a little bit more engaged. But it also works for students like my brother, who he honestly, sometimes he just didn't want to do the work. And it wasn't that he wasn't smart enough. It's just that it's a system that fails a lot of students that aren't traditionally set up to be in that education system, right? My brother oftentimes didn't do his work. I can't tell you how many times he got in trouble with my mom. And how many times my mom used to be like, dang, like, why can't Danny just do his work? And I'm like, well, Mom, like, he just doesn't like what he's learning. Or he likes what he's learning, but he's not being taught in the way that, like, engages him, right? And so I want to say this because Danny went to City Arts and Tech, and he went also to the same Envision school that I went to. And the day that I saw his college portfolio defense, I kid you not, I was like crying, bawling, because I could not believe that my brother, who didn't like school, who was literally never talked to me about academics ever, was up there in his like suit and tie and like looking really fly, and also just being very articulate and really intelligent about what he was talking about because he actually liked it. He had a project. We had something called the Work Learning Experience, which was called WLE, an internship where I think half the time, or parts of the week, we'd go to our internship, and then the other part, we'd come to school. And so he did an internship at Holy Stitch. It's a youth-ran, like, kind of fashion thing place. I don't know about fashion. But they customized jeans, and they customized all their stuff, and that was his project. And he presented on that during his college success portfolio defense. But the cool thing is that he was able to use that experience to then kind of fuse into all these other projects that he was doing, you know, where he talks about color and color hues and all this, like, fashion jargon. And the reason that I'm saying his story today is because my mom and I thought that he wouldn't go to college. We thought that maybe school just wasn't for him, and that was going to be fine. That people are different, and it's fine. He's just not going to go to school because he doesn't like school. And it wasn't that Danny didn't like school. He just didn't like the way he was being taught, right? And so now I'm really, really proud to say that Danny goes to San Francisco State University, where he's majoring in fashion design and merchandise. This is directly correlated to a project that he was doing in high school. Who knows if we would have found his passion if he hadn't done that? And for that, I'm literally forever grateful. I'm so proud of him, and I think that he's going to do amazing things. He's self-confident. Sometimes even when his jeans, I'm like, those don't look too symmetrical. He's like, yeah, nope, they're supposed to be like this. He's confident. He's confident. He has agency, right? When you're in college, of course, you have those 2 years where you're doing general ed and all this stuff, but it's fine because he knows he's going to get to a point in his college career where he's going to be able to do everything that he wants to do. And he has a clear vision of who he is as a student. One, he knows his major, and he knew it from the beginning. It took me almost 3 years to figure out what I wanted to major in. But also, he has a clear vision of what he wants to do in the future, right? He wants to design fashion, high-end fashion, as he calls it, for low-income communities and make it accessible to them. And that, to me, is amazing. Like, I actually think my brother's a lot cooler than I am. And maybe he could tell you a lot, like, more interesting stories, right? So I encourage you, if you have questions about him or anything, like, please let me know, and I will direct them to him, because he probably has a different story, right? But all coming back to PBL. And so I wanted to end this. I was looking at, YouTube, and so I was watching some interviews with Jane Elliott, who did the brown-eyed, blue-eyed experiment. If you're not familiar with it, I highly, highly encourage you to take a look at it. And at the end of one of her interviews, they asked her, so are you afraid, when are you going to retire? When are you going to retire from this work? And she does work with like race issues and race inequality. And she said, I'm afraid I have a job for life, right? Which is really, really like sad. But at the end, she said, you know what? I have this thing that I hold on to. It's hope. And it's holding on to positive energy. And that like stuck. I was like, wow, yeah, okay, hope. Because there may be failures. There may be times when you're like, is this actually working? Are my students actually engaged? Am I doing what I'm supposed to do to get them engaged in their education? Because I hope that this is what happened when you went into education, that you went into it not being selfish, that you went into it thinking, I want to help other students be able to find their passion and find their calling in life. And a lot of the times, students are annoying. I know we are. We talk over you. We don't let you finish your sentence. We ask you, wait, what am I supposed to do? I just told you what you're supposed to do, if you would be listening, right? But every day, holding on to that little bit of positivity, when a kid asks you a question that you're like, wow, you're actually engaged. Wow, you actually want to do this, right? And so I just want to thank all of you and really, really hope that maybe that I helped you see the effects of project-based learning, not only in college, but in my life, because this is something that I'll carry forever, right? I could not actually be up here speaking to you if I hadn't done that for 4+ years of my life already. And so project-based learning really, really does help students. And I think, I'm going to say this because I don't want to seem like I'm just a spokesperson, right? Like, I wouldn't ever be standing up here if I wasn't actually passionate about it, if I didn't actually believe in it. If I even had a slight doubt in my mind, I wouldn't be up here. I'd be like, I'm okay. Like, I don't want to do this. But I actually do believe in it. And so I want to encourage you all to hold on to positive energy. And so thank you. That's the end of my... Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.